Hi. Last clip, I told you that Trump's demand for tariffs is similar to a mafioso's demand for pizzo, protection money. Both are aggressive bids coupled with a threat when the bidder has all the cards. Which brings me to the extraordinary deal that Donald Trump just offered Ukraine. Why is it extraordinary? Because, like Don Corleone's deal in the movie The Godfather, it is one that Ukraine cannot refuse. Without Trump's support, they are dead. On the other hand, his deal both makes Ukraine his economic vassal, but also forces it to stop fighting and negotiate. But that's not all the deal does. Trump's offer to Ukraine also cuts Putin's economic incentive and forces him too to the negotiating table. Can you see this? If you haven't done many deals before, you probably cannot, because those who have never done deals often think in terms of 51%, 49% control of the company. But real-life deals often involve not controlling the corporate structure, but rather the underlying assets. Look at Trump's offer for Ukraine. He made Zelensky, the Ukrainian leader, an offer that takes away most of the incentive to continue fighting. How does he do it? Trump said, "We, the US, gave you $500 billion. I want all of this money back, secured by your cash flow from oil and gas, fertilizer, lithium, rare earth, all the assets that you and Russia and the EU aim to steal via corruption in the future after the fighting is over." What is the structure of this offer by Trump? First, Trump said, of each dollar in Ukraine's future GDP, I want half of it until the 500 billions are paid. All of this will be signed and notarized under New York State law, by the way. Such a structure is called a royalty, also known as the cut off the top. It is often the best deal of all if you can get it. For example, Steven Spielberg, the movie director, gets 3% off the top, allegedly, in movies because the audience for them come in due to his name. So he charges for it. On Pizza or McDonald's franchises, the franchisor, the company, usually gets 7 to 10% off the top of the franchisee's revenues because the brand name is what pulls in the customers. The franchisee pays all the costs, by the way. This also works in business. A gold royalty company like Franco-Nevada has something similar. And it also works for the mafia, which usually takes 10 to 25% off the top of a business revenue. All costs to the payer, clear revenues to you. What's not to like? Now, why don't everyone aim at a royalty? Those who have a marquee power that his clients draw, like Spielberg, often do. Also famous authors like J.K. Rowling of Harry Potter's fame, or Disney. Disney gets allegedly 35% of popcorn sellers' revenues inside the theme park. That's among the highest franchise fees in the business. What of Trump? He apparently wants half of all of Ukraine's revenues, the GDP, full half, guaranteed by a lien on Ukraine's asset under New York state law. How big is this 50% share, comparatively speaking, in cases of state payments to other states? Well, as a recent state in the UK newspaper pointed out, that this is larger than what the winners of World War I wanted from Germany in reparation in that famous Paris Peace Conference. You say it is shameful? You say it is greedy? You say it's immoral? The first two, yes, but not the third, in my opinion. In this case, it is certainly not immoral. And why not? Because in Ukraine's case, this aggressive deal by Trump has a good chance to stop the fighting. Stop how? It's like kids fighting over marbles in the yard. This marble is mine. No, it's mine. No, it's yours. Yet it's mine. How can the teacher stop the fighting without wrestling them apart? Simple. Take away their marbles. There's nothing to fight over. That's what Trump just did in three connected ways. First, he told Zelensky and those around him in Ukraine, who are more or less corrupt, the price you are fighting for, Ukraine's productive asset, is much smaller than you think, because half of it is now mine. If you don't agree, no more support for you and you're dead. If you do, I get half your GDP. What's the impact of this extraordinary deal? First, it tells all the corrupt among Ukrainian generals and ministers that the future just became poorer. But it also tells the soldiers who want to live in a prosperous state later that they'd live in a poorer state. So why fight on? Moreover, Trump says, you, Zelensky, must run an election first before we sign to make sure you have the legal right from the citizen to obligate Ukraine in this deal. So we'll see what the citizens really think about the war. In effect, Trump's deal says to Ukraine's people, even if you win, you will not be an owner of Ukraine. You will be managers of a big farm that will belong to the US, running it mostly for US benefit. Can't you see that this would cool the Ukrainian zeal to fight? But second, this also tells Putin the price you are fighting for, Ukraine's cash flow of minerals, oil and gas, fertilizer, farmlands, are half all mine. And they'll be my property under New York state law, which I will protect with my army if I have to. So yes, Trump says, you, Comrade Putin, may win Ukraine's land. You can fire Zelensky, put another manager there, but so what? Then you couldn't steal as much as you figured on stealing before, because half the country juice is now mine. Furthermore, your oligarch friends, whether in the army or the security services, now know it too. So they will have much less to put in their pocket also, and maybe obey you less. On the other hand, if you are nice to me and stop fighting soon, I may leave you and them now a bit more in the contact with Zelensky. See? And the same goes for the EU, by the way. The EU's corrupt leaders are also after the Ukrainian assets, which is the cash flow and the reconstruction contracts, which are a lot of billions too. Yet these contracts too can now go only to those companies that Trump will agree to. Isn't this a brilliant deal? With one aggressive offer, Trump took all the corruption juice, all the marbles out of the Ukrainian war for all three sides, the Ukraine, Russia, and the EU. So the hopes of all these for future loot have been dashed. The only realistic choice now is to stop fighting soon and be nice to Trump, who may let them have a bit more, be nice to them in turn. Isn't this an extraordinary deal? Harsh, yes, but in a way humane too. If done, even with some small changes, the fighting would stop and both sides, young people will stop dying and the corrupt on all three sides would lose. What of corruption on the US side, you say? Well, you can't have everything. At least USAID is closed, so the US benefit will be divided the way US voters want it, with minimal kickback for senators, in theory. But the implications are not over yet. There are two more bones of contention. One is guarantees that the US will give or not give to Ukraine that Russia won't gobble it up later. Russia prefers no US guarantees, so thus Ukraine must spend more money on its own army and so be a weak country which Russia could then influence, maybe even control. I am told by my contact that at this point, Russia will probably have, by default, because the US most likely will not give any such guarantee to Ukraine. And why should it? Just having a legal lien on Ukraine's asset means that if Putin touches these assets, he'll be torched with future US sanctions. What of guarantees to Ukraine by NATO? That part, sure. My sources in Washington tell me that this would be perfectly acceptable to the US, only on one condition. In such a case, the US will likely leave NATO and let European countries defend themselves and guarantee also anything and anyone they want, like Ukraine, but with their money and their soldiers. Which soldiers, you say? Oh, right. The Europeans have very few soldiers left. They shut down most of their armies, and with the savings, they bought silk underwear Moroccan vacation. Not my wars, by the way, but those of my Washington contacts. So what Trump is offering, in a sense, is a deal in which half of Ukraine's wealth will go to the US, notarized under New York state law, and let NATO, without the US, carry all the burden of both the Ukraine war and the future fight with Russia. Isn't this a brilliant deal? The US will become richer, have lesser defense burden in Europe, and the Europeans will have to spend more on a real army. Russia will become poorer and steal less, and so will the Ukraine, and so will the EU. What's not to like? If you're an American, that is, or an American stockholder, which brings us to the market implications. As I said in the last clip, By year end, the US will probably have lower costs due to Elon Musk's cost cutting, more revenues due to Trump's tariffs and deal making, like the one coming in Ukraine, and a lower military burden. Therefore, the US stock market will keep soaring, in my opinion. My target is still 7,500 on the S&P, maybe even a sneak higher. At the same time, the cost the US lays on the rest of the world, like they are laying right now on Europe and Ukraine and Russia, will make the rest of the world poorer. How much poorer? A lot poorer. But that will be revealed more slowly. While the US will have more access to Ukraine's assets, Europe will have less access, zero really. So Europe will have to spend more on the real soldiers and the real army to defend both itself and Ukraine. Not the kind of fake army it now has, with decorative ships that cannot even fight Houthis in sandals who bomb European ships in the Arabian Gulf. As Europe becomes poorer and humbler, its markets will reflect it. And therefore, in my opinion, after the US market reaches fresh highs by year end and will top, the decline will start, probably with some European catalyst. What catalyst? That's another story for another clip. That's all for today. Please let me know in the comment below what you think of the above, and if you like it, subscribe to the channel and forward it to all your subscribers and friends who they'll subscribe to. Then buy my books, The Sleuth Investor, The Advanced Sleuth Investor, and if you like them, give them a review on Amazon, which I hope will be a very good one. I'll see you next time, and meantime, thank you very much for watching.